I'm Amber Bailey, 28 years old, and until recently, I thought I had it all figured out. Despite my humble beginnings, I built a respectable career as a paralegal at Wilson and Hart. For 2 years, I dated Lucas Mitchell, a successful architect from old money. The class tension was always there, simmering beneath the surface, until one fateful dinner when his father called me street garbage to my face. What his father didn't know was that I had connections that could cancel the most important award of his medical career. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to someone who underestimated you. Growing up in Westfield wasn't easy. It was the kind of neighborhood where sirens served as nightly lullabies and where dreams often stayed just that, dreams. My mom, Deborah, worked double shifts at the local hospital as a nurse's aide to keep a roof over our heads after my dad walked out when I was 7. She taught me that circumstances don't define you, your response to them does. By 16, I was juggling high school with weekend shifts at the local diner. The tips weren't great, but they helped with groceries and started my modest college fund. My regular customers watched me grow up, slipping extra dollars under their coffee cups with whispered encouragements to get out of this place, honey. My grades were my ticket out. While my friends were partying, I was studying. When graduation came, I was one of 3 students from my high school to get a partial scholarship to State University. It wasn't an Ivy League school, but it was my gateway to something better. College wasn't the carefree experience movies portray. I worked at the campus bookstore during the day and waited tables at night. My social life consisted of study groups and rare pizza nights when tips were good. I lived on instant noodles and determination, graduating with a degree in legal studies and minimal debt, a victory in itself. Landing a job at Wilson and Hart was my crowning achievement. The prestigious law firm rarely hired from state, preferring Ivy League graduates. But my internship supervisor had connections and saw my potential. 3 years in, I had earned the respect of partners who initially looked through me. Then came that rainy Tuesday at Westfield Coffee Company. I was reviewing documents for a case, and Lucas was sketching building designs at the table next to mine. He asked to borrow my charger, and we started talking. He was handsome in an effortless way, tall, with kind blue eyes and a smile that seemed genuine. When he asked for my number, I hesitated. Men like him didn't usually look twice at women like me. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant where the owner knew him by name. Lucas was different from the entitled rich guys I'd encountered before. He listened when I spoke. He asked questions about my work and seemed genuinely impressed by my journey. When I shared stories about my neighborhood, he didn't show the discomfort or morbid fascination others had. "I admire you," he said that night. I was handed everything on a silver platter. "You built your life from scratch." As weeks turned into months, I fell for him. We spent weekends exploring the city, finding hole-in-the-wall restaurants, and talking until sunrise. He showed me his architectural designs, and I shared my dream of becoming an attorney. We built a relationship on mutual respect and shared dreams of creating something meaningful. The class difference lingered in the background. It emerged in small moments. His casual mention of family vacations in the Maldives, his surprise that I'd never been to Europe, his automatic reach for the check without checking the total. But these were minor ripples in otherwise calm waters. 6 months in, Lucas mentioned Sunday dinner with his parents. "They'll love you," he assured me, but his eyes didn't match his confident words. The Mitchell estate was intimidating, a colonial mansion with perfectly manicured grounds in Oakwood Hills, the city's most exclusive neighborhood. Howard Mitchell answered the door with a firm handshake and calculating eyes that assessed my worth in seconds. Diane Mitchell's smile was practiced, her hug stiff and perfunctory. "Amber works at Wilson and Hart," Lucas said proudly during dinner. "As an attorney?" Howard asked. "A paralegal," I clarified. "How practical," Diane remarked, exchanging glances with her husband. The evening continued with subtle jabs disguised as curiosity. They asked about my people as if I were from a different species. When I mentioned my mother's nursing job, Howard commented on how those types of healthcare workers always had the most interesting stories, as if she were a character in a sitcom rather than a professional. That first dinner set the pattern. Every interaction with the Mitchells left me feeling inadequate. At a charity gala where Lucas brought me as his plus one, Diane introduced me to her friends as Lucas's friend who works in law, carefully avoiding the term girlfriend. At Christmas, Howard gave everyone thoughtful gifts while I received a generic department store scarf with the price tag accidentally left on, significantly less expensive than the others. They need time, Lucas would say after each encounter. They're from a different generation. I wanted to believe him. After all, Lucas never made me feel less than. He celebrated my promotions at work, encouraged my LSAT studies, and talked about our future as equals. When his friend Blake made a comment about Lucas slumming it, Lucas ended the friendship immediately. After 18 months together, during a weekend trip to the coast, Lucas proposed on the beach at sunset. The ring was beautiful, not flashy, but elegant, exactly my taste. In that moment, looking into his hopeful eyes, I believed we could overcome the class divide. I said yes, ignoring the small voice warning me about becoming a Mitchell. We should celebrate with my parents, Lucas suggested on the drive back. They've been asking about our future. This will show them how serious we are. I agreed, hoping the engagement would finally bridge the gap between their world and mine. Lucas called them immediately, and an engagement dinner was scheduled for the following weekend. Mom's thinking about hosting an engagement party at the Oakwood Country Club, he mentioned casually. Nothing too extravagant. Just family, close friends, and some of Dad's hospital colleagues. The country club where memberships cost more than my annual salary. The place where people like me served drinks to people like them. I swallowed my discomfort and nodded, telling myself it was just one party. Our marriage would be ours, not theirs. If only I had recognized these moments for what they were, not just bumps in the road, but warning signs of the collision ahead. My parents want us to come over for dinner Friday night, Lucas announced, his voice tinged with unusual excitement. Dad says it's time to discuss wedding plans. I looked up from my LSAT practice test, stomach instantly nodding. Both of them want this? Even your father? He specifically suggested it, Lucas grinned. I think the engagement is finally making them see how serious we are. This could be a turning point, Amber. I wanted to share his optimism, but experience had taught me caution. Nevertheless, I marked the date on my calendar and began mentally preparing for another evening of subtle degradation. As Friday approached, my anxiety mounted. I spent hours searching for the perfect outfit, something professional yet fashionable, nothing that could be criticized as too flashy or too casual. I settled on a navy blue dress with a modest neckline and hemline, paired with pearl earrings that had been my grandmother's. The morning of the dinner, I splurged on a professional blowout at the salon, justifying the expense as necessary armor. If I looked polished and put together, maybe they would finally see me as worthy of their son. You don't need to try so hard, my mother said during our pre-dinner pep talk. If they can't see what a remarkable woman you are by now, a fancy dress won't change their minds. I know, Mom, I sighed, applying another layer of mascara. But this dinner is important to Lucas. If there's even a chance of building a better relationship with his parents, I need to try. Just remember who you are, Amber Bailey. You worked for everything you have. Don't let anyone make you feel small. After hanging up with my mother, I called Jessica, my best friend since high school. Set your boundaries tonight, she advised firmly. The moment you let them disrespect you is the moment it becomes acceptable. And once that line is crossed, it's hard to redraw it. I know. I'll stand my ground if necessary, I promised, though uncertainty colored my voice. And if Lucas doesn't back you up, that tells you everything you need to know about your future, she added. Her words stayed with me as I finished getting ready, uncomfortable in their truth. Lucas arrived precisely at 6, handsome in a tailored blazer. His eyes brightened when he saw me. You look beautiful, he said, kissing me softly. The genuine admiration in his gaze momentarily calmed my nerves. During the drive to Oakwood Hills, Lucas maintained an unusually upbeat demeanor. Mom asked what flowers you like. I think she's warming up to the idea of a spring wedding. That's surprising, I replied cautiously. He reached over to squeeze my hand. I know things have been tense, but they're trying, Amber. Dad even mentioned setting us up with his financial advisor to discuss our future. The gesture could be interpreted as controlling or helpful, depending on the intent. I chose to reserve judgment. Tonight will be different, Lucas assured me as we pulled into the circular driveway of the Mitchell estate. You'll see. The house loomed before us, windows glowing with warm light that somehow failed to make the place welcoming. Lucas led me to the door with his hand supportively on my lower back. Diane opened the door, her silk blouse and tailored slacks impeccable as always. Lucas, darling, she cooed, embracing her son before turning to me with a practiced smile. Amber, that dress is quite nice. Department store. It's from a boutique downtown, actually, I replied, maintaining my smile despite the backhanded compliment. Howard appeared in the foyer, tumbler of whiskey already in hand. The happy couple arrives, he announced with surprising cordiality. He shook Lucas's hand firmly before offering me a brief nod. Amber. Thank you for having me, Dr. Mitchell, I responded politely. Howard, please, he insisted, though the invitation to use his first name felt more like a command than a gesture of familiarity. We moved to the formal dining room, where Maria, their housekeeper, was arranging the final touches on an elaborate table setting. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier, and silver place settings gleamed against the dark mahogany table. Maria has prepared duck à l'orange, Diane informed us as we took our seats. I recalled Lucas mentioning you've never had it, Amber. The implication that I needed cultural education hung in the air. I simply thanked her for the thoughtfulness. Wine was poured, an expensive vintage Howard felt compelled to detail, and the first course was served. The conversation began with safe topics, Lucas's recent architectural projects, an upcoming charity gala Diane was organizing, Howard's golf game. I sat quietly, speaking only when directly addressed, which was rare. When I mentioned a challenging case at work, Howard interrupted to ask Lucas about a building he had designed for one of Howard's colleagues. Amber, your ring is lovely, Diane commented during a lull. Lucas has always had excellent taste. He gets that from me. Yes, he chose perfectly, I agreed, glancing affectionately at Lucas. It's exactly what I would have picked for myself. Well, a Mitchell bride has certain expectations to uphold, she continued. Speaking of which, I've been considering color schemes for the engagement party. Spring tones, I think. Pastel blues and soft pinks. That sounds lovely, I said cautiously. Though we haven't discussed colors yet ourselves. Oh, there's so much to decide, Diane waved dismissively. The country club has limited availability, so we've tentatively booked the grand ballroom for the second Saturday in June. I glanced at Lucas, who smiled encouragingly but failed to mention we'd discussed a fall engagement party, not summer. June is just 3 months away, I noted. Which is why we need to finalize the guest list soon, Howard interjected. My colleagues on the hospital board must be included, of course. And the Andersons, the Clarks, the Whitfields, all significant potential clients for Lucas. I nodded slowly, realizing this dinner wasn't about discussing our wedding plans, but informing us of decisions already made. As Maria served the main course, I attempted to contribute. Lucas and I were thinking of a smaller ceremony, actually. Something more intimate. The silence that followed was palpable. Howard set down his fork with deliberate care. Smaller? The Mitchells have hosted proper weddings for 3 generations. Your wedding will be the social event of the season. We just thought, I began. The Oakwood Cathedral is already expecting our reservation, Diane interrupted smoothly. Pastor Williams has known Lucas since he was baptized there. Again, I looked to Lucas, who shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. The pattern was painfully familiar, his parents steamrolling, Lucas acquiescing, me left voiceless. I tried once more. The cathedral is beautiful, but we discussed outdoor venues too. Maybe the botanical gardens. Howard's laugh held no humor. An outdoor wedding? With unpredictable weather and no proper facilities? I think not. The duck on my plate suddenly lost all appeal. I was once again the outsider, my preferences irrelevant, my input unwelcome. The conversation continued around me, details of floral arrangements, discussions of catering options, debates about appropriate music. Not once was my opinion solicited, though it was ostensibly my wedding being planned. I caught Lucas's eye, silently pleading for support. He reached for my hand under the table and squeezed it, but publicly remained aligned with his parents' vision. Each moment of his silence chipped away at my hope for our future. As dinner progressed, Howard refilled his whiskey for the third time, his jovial facade beginning to slip. He leaned forward, fixing me with an evaluative stare. "Now, about the financial arrangements," he said, swirling his drink. "Traditionally, the bride's family covers certain aspects of the wedding." My stomach tightened. "I'm aware of the tradition. And will your mother be contributing?" His tone suggested he already knew the answer. "My mother will contribute what she can," I replied carefully. "She's been saving since I was young. But her resources are limited." Diane made a small sound, not quite a laugh, but close enough. "How resourceful of her. And you, Amber? Will you be adding to the budget?" "I've been saving as well," I confirmed, though my savings had been intended for law school, not an extravagant wedding I never wanted. Howard nodded dismissively. "Lucas's trust fund will cover the essentials, of course. The Mitchells always provide for their own. But it's important to establish expectations early. The country club membership alone costs more than most people's annual salary," Diane added with uncomfortable pride. "The connections you'll make there will be invaluable to your future, Amber." I took a measured breath. "Actually, Lucas and I haven't discussed country club memberships." "It's non-negotiable," Howard stated flatly. "All Mitchell couples maintain appropriate social standings. It's how business gets done." Lucas finally spoke. "Dad, Amber and I are still figuring out what works for us." "There's nothing to figure out," Howard countered. "The Mitchell way has served this family for generations." The conversation shifted to the guest list again. Howard had apparently drafted a preliminary list of 300 names. 300? I echoed, unable to hide my surprise. "That seems excessive." "Nonsense," Howard scoffed. "My hospital colleagues alone account for 50 guests. Then there are my golf club associates, Diane's charity board members, Lucas's prep school connections." "What about my guests?" I asked. "How many did you have in mind?" Diane inquired with feigned interest. "About 40, I said. My mother, some colleagues from the firm, friends from college, and my neighborhood." Howard's expression soured. "Your neighborhood?" "In Westfield." The way he said it, like Westfield was synonymous with disease, made my cheeks burn. "Yes, I have lifelong friends there." "Friends like who?" Howard pressed. "Jessica Barnes, for one. We've been best friends since middle school. She's a kindergarten teacher now." "A teacher," Diane repeated with that same dismissive tone. "And Marcus Wilson, who grew up across the street. He runs his family's hardware store." Howard set his glass down with a sharp click. "Let me be clear. The Mitchell wedding is not the appropriate venue for Westfield personalities. Our guests include judges, surgeons, and business executives. My friends are hardworking, good people," I defended, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'm sure they're very nice in their own way," Diane placated. "Perhaps a separate celebration would be more suitable for them." The implication was crystal clear. My people weren't good enough to mix with theirs. A segregated celebration to keep the classes from mingling. Lucas cleared his throat. "Mom, Dad, that's not." "Lucas, you know what's at stake," Howard interrupted. "Your career depends on the right connections. These are people who can commission buildings, who sit on boards that approve projects. You can't afford to alienate them with inappropriate guest selections." "Inappropriate?" I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. "Let's be frank," Howard continued, alcohol loosening his carefully maintained veneer. "We've accepted that Lucas has chosen you, despite our reservations. We're making accommodations. But there are limits to what can be expected at a Mitchell function." The room seemed to still. Even Maria, who had entered to clear plates, froze momentarily before silently retreating. "What exactly are your reservations about me, Dr. Mitchell?" I asked, abandoning pretense. Howard exchanged glances with his wife before answering. "Your background is not what we envisioned for Lucas. We've worked hard to provide him with advantages, connections, a certain standing in society. And while your, Climb from your circumstances shows admirable determination. There are fundamental differences in outlook, in priorities, in social understanding, in worth. I suggested quietly. Don't put words in my mouth, Howard warned, though his expression confirmed my interpretation. I think we should redirect this conversation, Diane suggested, her smile strained. The important thing is planning a wedding that reflects the Mitchell name appropriately. A name I'll be taking, I pointed out. Howard's face darkened. A name that comes with responsibilities and standards. Standards I apparently don't meet. Amber, Lucas cautioned softly. Howard drained his whiskey. Since we're abandoning pretense, let me be direct. We're willing to accept you into the family because Lucas insists. We're willing to finance a wedding far beyond what you could afford. We're willing to introduce you to people who can advance your career immeasurably. All we ask is that you recognize the opportunity you're being given and adapt accordingly. My hands trembled beneath the table. Adapt by erasing where I come from? By being ashamed of my friends and family? By understanding that certain elements of your past are better left there, in the past, Howard clarified coldly. The Mitchell name opens doors. It doesn't welcome street garbage through them. The slur hung in the air like poison. Complete silence enveloped the room. Diane's eyes widened slightly, though whether in shock at the statement or its public expression was unclear. Lucas sat frozen, his face pale. I sat perfectly still, blood rushing in my ears. In all the subtle and not-so-subtle insults over 2 years, none had been so nakedly contemptuous. The term cut through any pretense of acceptance. Street garbage. That's what he saw when he looked at me. Not an accomplished professional. Not a woman who loved his son. Not even a human deserving basic respect. Garbage from the streets. I placed my napkin carefully on the table and stood, legs unsteady but dignity intact. Thank you for dinner, I said, voice remarkably steady. And for the clarity. Lucas finally seemed to unfreeze. Amber, wait. Dad didn't mean. I meant exactly what I said, Howard interrupted. It's time someone spoke honestly here. Howard, Diane hissed, false propriety finally breaking. I walked out without another word, my heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped onto the porch, tears threatening, but held back by sheer determination. The door opened behind me. Lucas emerged, distress evident on his face. Amber, I'm so sorry. He's had too much to drink. He doesn't speak for me. But he does speak for your family, I replied. And you didn't say anything. You sat there while he called me garbage. I was shocked. I didn't know what to. 2 years, Lucas. 2 years of subtle and not-so-subtle reminders that I don't belong in your world. 2 years of you promising they'll come around. And now I know they never will, because in their eyes, I'll always be trash from the wrong side of town. That's not true, he insisted, reaching for my hand. I love you. We can work through this. I stepped back. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Tonight, your father showed me exactly what he thinks of me. And you showed me exactly how much you're willing to stand up for me, which is not at all. That's not fair. You know how important family connections are for my career, for our future. Our future, I repeated hollowly. A future where I'm tolerated as long as I erase my past, distance myself from my friends and family, and become the proper Mitchell wife? Where your father can openly insult me and face no consequences. He'll apologize when he's sober, Lucas promised. Will he? Or will he just be more careful about saying it to my face? I pulled out my phone. I'm calling an Uber. I need space to think. Let me drive you home, he pleaded. No. I can't be around you right now. The car service app showed a driver 7 minutes away. Go back inside, Lucas. Your parents are waiting. Amber, please. Don't let one bad night ruin everything we've built. This isn't about one night. It's about a pattern. It's about what our life together would actually look like. My voice broke slightly. And I'm not sure I can live that life anymore. The headlights of my Uber appeared at the end of the driveway. As I walked toward it, Lucas called after me, but I didn't turn back. In the car, I finally allowed the tears to fall, silent streams down my cheeks as we pulled away from the Mitchell estate and the future I had foolishly imagined there. The Uber driver mercifully remained silent during the 30-minute drive back to my apartment. I stared out the window, tears drying on my cheeks, the term street garbage echoing in my mind with each passing streetlight. Once home, I kicked off my heels and collapsed onto my couch. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages and calls from Lucas, but I silenced it, needing space to process the evening's events. I changed into sweatpants and an old t-shirt, removing all traces of the carefully constructed image I'd presented at dinner. Without makeup and fine clothes, I studied my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Was this what Howard saw? A girl from Westfield trying to play dress-up in their world? Sleep evaded me that night. I replayed every interaction with the Mitchells, recognizing patterns I had willfully ignored. Howard's consistent dismissal of my achievements. Diane's backhanded compliments. Their joint efforts to reshape me into someone suitable for their son. And Lucas. Sweet, conflict-averse Lucas, perpetually caught between worlds, unwilling to fully commit to either. By dawn, my eyes were swollen from crying, but my mind was clearer. I had decisions to make that would determine not just my relationship with Lucas, but my relationship with myself. The doorbell rang just after 9 a.m. I knew who it was before opening the door. Lucas stood in the hallway, unshaven and tired, clutching a bouquet of pink peonies, my favorite flowers. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside to let him in, accepting the flowers without comment. "I didn't sleep at all," he began, pacing my small living room. "What my father said was inexcusable. I should have defended you immediately. I failed you, and I'm so sorry. Why didn't you?" I asked simply. He ran his hands through his disheveled hair. I was shocked. I've never heard him speak that way. And then everything happened so fast. It may have been the first time he said it out loud, but it wasn't the first time he thought it, I pointed out. Your parents have made their feelings clear from day one. They're from a different generation, a different world. They don't understand people who haven't lived their privileged lives. Stop making excuses for them, Lucas. They understand perfectly well. They just don't respect anyone they consider beneath them. He sat heavily on my couch. I confronted them after you left. Dad tried to justify it at first, said he was just being honest. When I threatened to leave and not come back, he admitted he was out of line. But does he actually regret what he said, or just that he said it out loud? Lucas had no answer for that. This isn't just about one awful comment, I continued. It's about a pattern of behavior that would continue throughout our marriage. It's about the way your family views me and where I come from. It's about whether you're willing to stand with me as an equal partner or expect me to fit into their mold. I don't expect that, he protested. I love you for who you are. But you're willing to let them disrespect me to maintain family harmony. That's not love, Lucas. That's convenience. His shoulders slumped. What are you saying? I'm saying I need time to think about whether this relationship has a future. Amber, please. We can work through this. Maybe. But I need space to decide if that's what I want. I twisted the engagement ring on my finger. I won't be attending any events with your family until I've made that decision. Lucas looked stricken but nodded. Take whatever time you need. I'll wait. And I'll make it clear to my parents that their behavior has to change. After he left, I called my mother. Her shift had just ended, and she arrived at my apartment an hour later, arms open for the hug I desperately needed. I recounted the previous night's events, including the street garbage comment. Mom's expression hardened, but she wasn't surprised. People like Howard Mitchell believe they're superior by birthright, she said, squeezing my hand. No achievement of yours will ever be enough because, in his mind, your worth was determined by where you were born and to whom. What should I do, Mom? She sighed. Only you can answer that, honey. But I will say this. Marriage is hard enough without marrying into a family that sees you as beneath them. And a man who won't stand up for his wife to his parents won't stand up for her to anyone. Her words stayed with me as I called Jessica, who came over that evening with ice cream and righteous indignation. I knew that family was trouble from the start, she fumed. Howard Mitchell may be a renowned surgeon, but he's still trash in a $1,000 suit. Despite my hurt, I smiled at her fierce loyalty. I love Lucas, I admitted. but I'm starting to wonder if that's enough. Love without respect is just attachment, Jessica said, handing me a spoon. You deserve both. The following Monday, I returned to work, grateful for the distraction. During lunch, my colleague Diana noticed my subdued mood and invited me to join her. Relationship troubles? She guessed astutely. I nodded, sharing a condensed version of recent events. My first marriage was to a man from a family like that, she revealed. Old money, generations of privilege. They never accepted me, despite my Harvard law degree, because my parents were immigrants who owned a restaurant. What happened? We lasted 3 years. Every holiday was tense, every family event a reminder that I didn't belong. Eventually, the constant disapproval created a wedge between us. He resented me for not trying harder to fit in. I resented him for expecting me to. How did you know when to end it? I asked. When I realized I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone smaller, less confident, always apologizing for taking up space in their world. She smiled sadly. The day I filed for divorce was the day I reclaimed myself. That evening, scrolling mindlessly through social media to distract myself, I came across a post from Oakwood Memorial Hospital. They were announcing their annual Medical Excellence Gala, where Howard Mitchell would receive the Distinguished Service Award and a $500,000 research grant. The post included a quote from Howard about upholding the highest standards in both medicine and community service. The hypocrisy was staggering. As I stared at Howard's smiling face in the accompanying photo, something clicked into place. Through my work at Wilson and Hart, I had helped prepare documents for several board members of Oakwood Memorial. One of them, Evelyn Parker, had specifically mentioned chairing the awards committee. An idea began to form. Not revenge exactly, but accountability. If Howard's highest standards included demeaning people based on their socioeconomic background, perhaps the awards committee should know who they were really honoring. I closed the app, conflicted about using professional connections for personal matters. Was it unethical? Would it make me as bad as Howard? I called Jessica to discuss my dilemma. It's not about revenge, she said after listening carefully. It's about consequences. Men like Howard Mitchell go through life believing they can say and do whatever they want without repercussions. Why should this be any different? Because it would affect Lucas too, I pointed out. And I still care about him. Lucas has benefited from his father's reputation and connections his entire life. Maybe it's time he experienced the other side of that equation. I spent that night weighing my options. By morning, I had made 2 decisions. First, I would meet with Lucas and his parents one more time, giving Howard a chance to genuinely apologize and change. Second, if that failed, I would share my experience with Evelyn, not to seek revenge, but to provide information about the true character of a man being publicly honored. I texted Lucas my conditions, a meeting at his parents' home where we could address the insult directly and establish boundaries for the future. He readily agreed, expressing relief that I was willing to talk. The meeting was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. I spent the intervening days strengthening my resolve, reminding myself of my worth, and preparing for either reconciliation or closure. When Saturday arrived, I dressed simply but professionally in black slacks and a blue blouse. No special effort to impress, just my authentic self. Lucas picked me up, tension evident in his tight grip on the steering wheel. They know how important this is, he assured me. Dad hasn't had a drink all week. He knows he needs to make this right. I nodded, saying little. My decision would depend not on promises, but on actions. The Mitchell estate looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more like what it was, an expensive house owned by flawed people. Howard and Diane waited in the formal living room, both dressed as if for a business meeting. Amber, Diane greeted me with a stiff nod. Thank you for coming. Howard stood as I entered, his expression unreadable. Please sit down. I took a seat on the sofa, Lucas beside me. The Mitchells sat across from us, a coffee table between us like a demilitarized zone. Lucas tells us you wanted to address what happened at dinner. Howard began, his tone measured. Yes, I confirmed. I think we need to be honest about whether there's a path forward for all of us. Howard cleared his throat. I understand my comment was poorly chosen. If you were offended, I apologize. The non-apology hung in the air. If I were offended, as if the insult existed only in my perception. I wasn't offended, Dr. Mitchell. I was dehumanized, I clarified. You called me street garbage because of where I grew up. That's not a poor word choice. That's a revelation of character. Howard's jaw tightened. I had been drinking. It was an unfortunate moment. Alcohol doesn't create thoughts. It removes the filter that prevents expressing them, I countered. I need to know if that's how you truly see me. What Howard meant, Diane interjected smoothly, was that certain backgrounds can be challenging to integrate into our social circle. We have certain expectations for Lucas's partner. Mom, Lucas warned. Let's be frank, she continued. We've tried to be welcoming, Amber. We've included you in family events, introduced you to our friends. But there's been resistance on your part to embrace our way of life. Your way of life, I repeated. You mean pretending I wasn't raised by a single mother in Westfield? Hiding my friends who work blue-collar jobs? Being ashamed of the neighborhood that shaped me? No one's asking you to be ashamed, Howard said dismissively. Just to recognize that the Mitchell name comes with certain social obligations. The Mitchell name, I echoed. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Protecting the family legacy, even at the cost of your son's happiness. We want Lucas to be happy, Diane insisted. But we also want him to be successful. In our world, those things are connected. Lucas finally spoke up. My happiness is with Amber. That should be enough for you both. Howard turned to his son. You're young. You think love conquers all. But marriage is a partnership that affects every aspect of life, social, financial, professional. Compatibility matters. And you don't think Amber and I are compatible? Lucas challenged. I think there are challenges you're not considering, Howard replied. Challenges that will become more apparent over time. Like what? I asked directly. Howard's mask of civility slipped. Like the fact that our family has spent generations building connections, establishing ourselves in circles that matter. Circles that aren't easily accessible to someone from your background. Dad, Lucas protested. No, let him continue, I said quietly. I want to hear this. The plain truth is that you're not what we envisioned for Lucas. You're ambitious, yes. Intelligent, certainly. But there's a natural order to society. People tend to be happiest with those from similar backgrounds, similar values. And you think you know my values based on my zip code? I know that people from your neighborhood view success differently. They're grateful for any step up, while we expect excellence as the baseline. Each word revealed more about Howard's worldview. A hierarchy with himself at the top and people like me permanently beneath, regardless of achievement. I have a proposition, Howard said suddenly, reaching for his checkbook in his jacket pocket. Let's be practical. You and Lucas have had a relationship, and now it's run its course. To ease the transition, I'm prepared to offer financial assistance. He began writing a check, the scratching of his pen the only sound in the stunned silence. You're trying to buy me off? I asked incredulously. I'm acknowledging that you've invested time in this relationship and that starting over can be difficult. He tore the check from the book and slid it across the coffee table. This should help with law school expenses or whatever else you've been saving for. I didn't touch the check. You really think I'm with your son for financial gain? I think everyone acts in their self-interest, Howard replied. There's no shame in recognizing an opportunity when it presents itself. Lucas exploded from the couch. That's enough. You've gone too far, Dad. Apologize to Amber right now. I'm simply being honest, son. Something I should have done from the beginning instead of hoping this phase would pass naturally. This phase is the woman I love, Lucas shouted. The woman I want to marry. You can find someone more suitable, Howard dismissed. Someone from our social circle who understands our traditions, our expectations. I don't want anyone else. While they argued, I slipped the engagement ring from my finger and placed it on the coffee table beside the untouched check. The small clink of diamond against glass drew everyone's attention. I'm not for sale, Dr. Mitchell, I said, standing. And I won't spend my life trying to prove my worth to people who decided I had none before they ever met me. Amber, no, Lucas pleaded, reaching for the ring. Don't do this. I looked at him with genuine sadness. I love you, Lucas. but I love myself more. And I deserve better than to be tolerated by your family. We can make this work without them, he insisted. Can we? You depend on your father's connections for your career. You've never stood up to him before today. How long until you resent me for the rift I've caused? This isn't about you. It's about their prejudice. A prejudice you've enabled by silence. I turned to Howard and Diane. Thank you for showing me exactly what my future would have been in this family. It's the most honest thing you've ever done for me. With dignity intact, I walked to the door. Lucas followed, grabbing my arm gently. Please don't leave like this, he begged, tears in his eyes. I'll fix this, I promise. I touched his face one last time. Some things can't be fixed, Lucas. They can only be accepted. And I can't accept this. I walked to my car alone, my heart breaking, but my spirit oddly unburdened. As I drove away from the Mitchell estate, I realized I was also driving away from a future of compromise and conditional acceptance, a future where I would always be the outsider, the girl from Westfield who didn't belong. My apartment felt both empty and peaceful that evening. I ordered takeout, opened a bottle of wine, and allowed myself to fully feel the grief of ending a relationship I had believed would last forever. Lucas called repeatedly, each voicemail more desperate than the last. He had confronted his parents again after I left, he said. He was looking for his own apartment, cutting financial ties. He would prove he could choose me over them. I listened but didn't call back. These were promises made in the heat of emotion, and I doubted their staying power. Howard held too much influence over Lucas's career, his social standing, his entire worldview. Realistically, any rebellion would be temporary. Monday morning brought unexpected clarity. I woke feeling lighter, as if setting down a burden I hadn't realized I was carrying. For 2 years, I had unconsciously diminished parts of myself to fit into Lucas's world. Now I could reclaim those pieces. At work, I requested a meeting with Thomas Wilson, the senior partner who had taken an interest in my career. I'm planning to take the LSAT this fall, I told him. I wanted your advice on law school applications. His support was immediate and enthusiastic. Wilson and Hart has a scholarship program for promising paralegals. With your performance record, you'd be a strong candidate. For the first time in weeks, I felt excitement about my future, a future I was building on my own terms. That afternoon, Lucas appeared at my office, eyes red-rimmed and pleading. Just 5 minutes, he requested. Please. We walked to a nearby coffee shop, where he laid out his plan. He had placed a deposit on an apartment downtown, away from Oakwood Hills. He was reaching out to independent clients not connected to his father. He was prepared to build a life separate from his parents' influence. I love you, he insisted. I'll prove that's enough. It's not about proof, Lucas. It's about recognition. Your parents showed me who they are, and you showed me your limitations in standing against them. Those facts don't change just because we want them to. People can change, he argued. I'm changing right now. Out of desperation, not conviction. The moment I walked away, you panicked. That's not the same as truly understanding why your family's treatment of me was wrong. I do understand. What they did was elitist and cruel. But until Saturday, you tolerated it. You made excuses for it. You asked me to endure it for the sake of your career and family harmony. I sighed. I don't blame you entirely. It's the world you were raised in. But I can't tie my future to someone who only found his voice when he was about to lose me. His expression crumpled. So that's it? 2 years together, and you're just walking away. I'm choosing myself, I corrected gently. Something I should have done the first time your father made me feel less than, and you said nothing. We parted with no resolution, Lucas still believing he could win me back, me knowing that some bridges, once revealed as unstable, can't be safely recrossed. 3 days later, Diane Mitchell called me, the first direct contact she had ever initiated. Amber, she began without preamble. Lucas is distraught. Howard and I are concerned about his mental state. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied carefully. But Lucas is an adult. His emotional well-being isn't my responsibility anymore. He's threatening to withdraw from family business interests. Do you understand what that would mean for his future? For the Mitchell legacy? I understand that Lucas is making his own choices, just as I've made mine. She sighed with exasperation. What will it take to resolve this situation? Howard is prepared to apologize more formally if that would help. This isn't a negotiation, Mrs. Mitchell. I'm not withholding forgiveness to extract concessions. I've simply recognized that your family and I have incompatible values. Values? She echoed incredulously. This is about Lucas's happiness. Is it? Because it sounds like it's about preserving the Mitchell business interests and social standing. A telling silence followed. Perhaps we should meet again, she finally suggested. All of us. Clear the air properly. After considering the request, I agreed. Not because I believed reconciliation was possible, but because proper closure might help Lucas accept our breakup and move forward. The following evening found me once again in the Mitchell living room. This time, Lucas sat beside his parents rather than me, a visual confirmation of where allegiances ultimately lay. Howard spoke first, his apology clearly rehearsed. My comment was inappropriate and does not reflect the values our family stands for. I hope you can accept my sincere regret for any hurt caused. It was the careful apology of a man accustomed to managing public relations, not a genuine acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Thank you for saying that, I replied neutrally. Excellent, Diane smiled tightly. Now we can put this unfortunate incident behind us and return to planning your future together. That's not why I came, I clarified. I appreciated the opportunity for a proper conversation, but my decision stands. Lucas and I won't be getting married. This is absurd, Howard exploded, facade cracking. One regrettable comment, and you're willing to throw away everything? It wasn't one comment. It was the culmination of 2 years of subtle and not-so-subtle reminders that I don't belong in your world. We invited you into our home, introduced you to our circle, Diane protested. As a project to be improved, not a person to be accepted, I countered. Every interaction came with the implication that I needed to change to be worthy of the Mitchell name. All young women adapt when they marry into established families, she dismissed. It's part of growing up. Adaptation is mutual. What you wanted was erasure of my background, my connections, my identity. Howard's patience visibly thinned. Let's be practical. Lucas has certain responsibilities as a Mitchell. The family name opens doors, creates opportunities. But it also comes with expectations. Expectations that apparently include marrying someone from the right background, I noted. Someone who understands the social dynamics, yes, Howard confirmed unapologetically. Someone who enhances rather than complicates his professional prospects. Lucas shifted uncomfortably. Dad, you're not helping. I'm being honest, which is apparently what Amber wants. Howard leaned forward. The truth is, your relationship was always going to face challenges because of these differences. Better to recognize that now than after years of trying to force compatibility that isn't there. His candor was almost refreshing in its naked prejudice. He truly believed people should remain in their assigned social stations. I appreciate your honesty, I said. And I agree that compatibility is essential in marriage. Lucas and I are compatible as individuals, but not within the constraints your family imposes. What does that mean? Lucas asked. It means that who you are with me one-on-one is different from who you are as Howard Mitchell's son. And ultimately, you can't separate those identities. Howard nodded approvingly. Finally, some sense. You see it now, don't you? The insurmountable differences. The only insurmountable difference is that I refuse to devalue myself to meet your arbitrary standards of worth, I clarified. And Lucas lacks the courage to stand against those standards. I am standing against them. Lucas protested. I'm moving out, seeking independent clients. Temporarily, I interrupted gently. Until this blows over and you can return to the comfort and privilege of being a Mitchell. That's unfair, he insisted. Is it? Then tell me this. If your father threatened to disinherit you completely, no connections, no trust fund, no family name advantage, would you still choose me? His hesitation was answer enough. Howard actually smiled. He's being realistic. The Mitchell name is worth millions in connections and opportunities. No sensible person would abandon that for a romantic notion. And that's where we fundamentally disagree, I said, standing to leave. Because I believe human dignity isn't negotiable. I believe love that comes with conditions isn't love at all. And I believe the Mitchell name, for all its prestige, isn't worth the cost of admission. Where are you going? Lucas asked desperately. Home. This conversation has clarified what I already knew. I turned to Howard. Your apology is accepted, but changes nothing. Your values and mine are incompatible. I handed Lucas a small box containing the few belongings he had kept at my apartment. I wish you well, Lucas. I hope someday you find the courage to define success on your own terms, not your father's. Howard stood as I headed for the door. You know, I offered you a generous settlement. Most people in your position would have taken it. I paused, turning back with a smile. That's where you're wrong, Dr. Mitchell. You see me as street garbage who would naturally grab any financial opportunity. But that perception says more about your values than mine. I was raised to believe my dignity isn't for sale at any price. With those words, I left the Mitchell estate for the final time, my heart bruised but my self-respect intact. In choosing myself over the Mitchell name and all it represented, I had reclaimed something far more valuable than what I was leaving behind. The week after my final meeting with the Mitchells, I threw myself into work and LSAT preparation. Jessica checked on me daily, alternating between encouraging pep talks and creative suggestions for Howard Mitchell voodoo dolls. I'm actually doing okay, I told her during our Friday night wine session. Better than I expected. Because you chose yourself, she said, refilling our glasses. That's always the right decision, even when it hurts. I nodded, thinking about Lucas. He had stopped calling after our last meeting, finally accepting the finality of our breakup. According to mutual acquaintances, he had indeed moved into his own apartment, but was still working primarily with clients connected to his father. Have you seen the announcements for that fancy hospital award thing? Jessica asked, scrolling through her phone. They're doing a big publicity push. I had seen them. Oakwood Memorial Hospital had begun promoting their annual Medical Excellence Gala across social media and local newspapers. Howard Mitchell's face appeared prominently in the materials, alongside quotes about his contributions to medicine and the community. The Distinguished Service Award came with considerable prestige and a $500,000 research grant. Previous recipients had used the platform to secure additional funding, expand their departments, and enhance their professional legacies. Are you still thinking about talking to that board member? Jessica asked cautiously. Evelyn Parker, I confirmed. I've been debating the ethics of it. What's unethical about sharing your experience? You're not making anything up. It feels like using professional connections for personal revenge. Or it's providing relevant character information about someone being publicly honored, Jessica countered. Wouldn't you want to know if you were about to give a massive award to someone who behaves that way? She had a point. If Howard treated me with such contempt based on my socioeconomic background, how did he treat patients from similar circumstances? Hospital staff he considered beneath him? Medical students without family connections? The following Monday, I reviewed documents for a case involving Oakwood Memorial's expansion plans. Evelyn Parker's name appeared multiple times as a signatory. As board treasurer and chair of the awards committee, she wielded significant influence at the hospital. I had met Evelyn twice during document signings, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 60s who had built a successful investment firm before turning to philanthropic work. She had treated me with professional courtesy, acknowledging my contributions to the legal proceedings rather than viewing me as just support staff. After weighing the decision carefully, I emailed her assistant requesting a lunch meeting to discuss community relations aspects of Oakwood Memorial's expansion. It was vague but not dishonest. Howard Mitchell's attitude certainly reflected on the hospital's community relations. To my surprise, Evelyn accepted, suggesting a restaurant near my office for the following week. I prepared meticulously, organizing my thoughts to ensure I presented facts without appearing vindictive. The restaurant was upscale but not ostentatious, white tablecloths and discreet service that allowed for private conversation. Evelyn arrived precisely on time, elegant in a tailored suit that spoke of wealth worn with comfortable confidence rather than flashy display. Amber Bailey, she greeted me with a firm handshake. I remember you from the zoning meetings. Thomas speaks highly of your work. We ordered lunch and made small talk about the firm, the hospital expansion, and mutual professional acquaintances. Evelyn was direct but engaging, asking thoughtful questions about my career aspirations. "Thomas mentioned you're preparing for law school," she noted. "Criminal law?" "Corporate, with a focus on nonprofit governance," I replied. "I find the intersection of business efficiency and social good fascinating." She nodded approvingly. "A growing field with real impact potential." "Now, you mentioned community relations in your email. I'm curious about your perspective." The opening was perfect. I took a measured breath. "Ms. Parker, my interest in community relations is both professional and personal. Professionally, I've observed that institutions often struggle to truly connect with diverse socioeconomic communities. Personally, I've experienced how those barriers manifest." "Go on," she encouraged, her expression attentive. "Are you familiar with Dr. Howard Mitchell?" A slight narrowing of her eyes was the only indication of surprise at the shift in topic. "Of course. Chief of Cardiovascular Surgery and this year's Distinguished Service Award recipient. May I share something in confidence? Not as a paralegal from Wilson and Hart, but as a community member with relevant information." She studied me for a moment before nodding. "I value candor, Ms. Bailey." I recounted my experience with Howard Mitchell, sticking to factual events without emotional embellishment. The pattern of elitist behavior. The clear disdain for my background. The street garbage comment that revealed his true perspective. His attempt to buy me off when I ended the engagement with his son. Evelyn listened without interruption, her expression revealing nothing. When I finished, she placed her napkin beside her plate with deliberate precision. "That's a troubling account," she said finally. "May I ask why you're sharing this with me specifically?" "Because the Distinguished Service Award recognizes not just medical achievement, but character and community impact," I replied honestly. "I believe the committee should have complete information when making such decisions." "And this isn't about personal vindication?" she probed. "I won't pretend I'm not hurt by Dr. Mitchell's behavior," I acknowledged. "But my concern is broader. If he views people from certain neighborhoods as inherently less valuable, how does that affect his approach to patient care? To mentoring medical students from diverse backgrounds? To hospital policies that impact underserved communities?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "Valid questions. Do you have any documentation of these incidents?" I hesitated. "Some. Text messages from Lucas acknowledging his father's behavior. Emails where Dr. Mitchell dictated wedding terms with clear classist undertones. Would you be willing to share those?" "If necessary, yes. Though I'd prefer this conversation remain confidential." "Understood." She sipped her water thoughtfully. "You should know, Amber, that yours isn't the first concerning report about Howard Mitchell's interpersonal conduct." This surprised me. "It isn't. The board has received complaints from nursing staff about dismissive treatment, from patients who felt their concerns were minimized, from medical students without connections who described unequal mentoring opportunities." She sighed. "Brilliant surgeons aren't always brilliant human beings." "Then why honor him? His surgical outcomes are exceptional. His research contributions significant. And frankly, his family name carries weight with donors." She met my eyes directly. "But the Distinguished Service Award explicitly recognizes character and community impact, not just technical skill. So what happens now?" I asked. "The awards committee will need to review this information. Confidentially, of course." She reached for her purse, extracting a business card. "If you're willing to provide those texts and emails, please send them directly to me. I'll ensure they're handled appropriately." That evening, I forwarded the relevant documentation to Evelyn, feeling neither triumph nor regret, just a quiet certainty that I was doing the right thing. This wasn't about hurting Howard Mitchell. It was about upholding the integrity of an award meant to recognize genuine service. 2 weeks passed without further communication from Evelyn. I focused on work and LSAT preparation, gradually rebuilding my life without Lucas. We had no contact, though mutual friends reported he seemed withdrawn and uncommitted to the independent path he had claimed to be forging. Then, browsing local news one evening, I saw the headline, "Oakwood Memorial Hospital postpones Distinguished Service Award pending review." The brief article stated that the awards committee had received new information requiring evaluation and would delay the presentation originally scheduled for the upcoming gala. No recipient was named, though Howard had previously been announced. My phone rang almost immediately. Lucas. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Did you do this? He demanded without preamble, voice tight with anger. Do what exactly? Don't play dumb, Amber. Dad's award is suddenly under review right after you threatened to expose him. I never threatened anything, I corrected calmly. I shared factual information with a relevant party. You had no right to interfere with his career. I had every right to tell my truth. If the hospital considers that truth problematic, that's their decision, not mine. Lucas made a frustrated sound. Do you have any idea what you've done? This award was important to him, to our family name. The Mitchell name again, I noted. Always the priority. This is vindictive, and you know it. No, Lucas. Vindictive would be making things up to hurt your father. I simply told the truth about how he treats people he considers beneath him. If that truth damages his reputation, perhaps the problem lies with his behavior, not my honesty. He's a brilliant surgeon who's saved countless lives. And he can continue saving lives without receiving an award that specifically honors character and community service. The line went silent for several seconds. When Lucas spoke again, his voice was quieter but still tense. Dad's furious. He's convinced you orchestrated this to punish him. Of course he believes that, I said sadly. He can't imagine I acted from principle rather than pettiness, because that's not how he operates. Everything is transactional to him, power, status, even relationships. He wants to know who you talk to. That's confidential. Amber, please. He's making himself sick over this. The board is reviewing his entire professional history. For a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. Had I gone too far? But then I remembered Howard's cold eyes as he called me street garbage, his smug certainty as he tried to buy me off, his lifelong pattern of judging human worth by zip code and family name. I'm sorry this is difficult for your family, I said sincerely. But I won't apologize for speaking truth to power. That's something my street garbage upbringing taught me. I ended the call, emotions conflicted. I hadn't wanted to hurt Lucas, who was as much a product of his upbringing as I was of mine. But I couldn't regret holding Howard accountable, perhaps for the first time in his privileged life. The following week, Evelyn Parker requested another meeting, this time at her office. The board had conducted a thorough review, interviewing hospital staff across departments about Howard Mitchell's professional conduct. The pattern was consistent, she informed me. Respectful treatment of those he considers peers or superiors. Dismissive, sometimes demeaning behavior toward those he considers beneath him, particularly staff from diverse backgrounds and patients from lower-income neighborhoods. I'm not surprised, I admitted. But I'm sorry to hear it confirmed. The board has decided to award the Distinguished Service Honor to Dr. Elena Rodriguez instead. Her clinical outcomes match Dr. Mitchell's, and her community outreach program has significantly improved cardiac care access in underserved neighborhoods. I nodded, feeling a complex mix of vindication and sadness. How did Dr. Mitchell take the news? Poorly, Evelyn admitted. He threatened legal action initially, though his attorney likely advised against it since a lawsuit would make the board's findings public. She studied me thoughtfully. You took a significant risk sharing your experience, Amber. That took courage. It felt necessary, I replied simply. As I left Evelyn's office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Howard Mitchell. Congratulations. You've managed to damage a reputation built over 30 years of saving lives. I hope your vendetta brought you satisfaction. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say to a man who still couldn't see that his own actions, not my reporting of them, had damaged his reputation. Some people never learn, regardless of how many expensive degrees hang on their walls. That evening, I deleted Howard's text and blocked the number. The Mitchell chapter of my life was closing, and I was ready to write my own story moving forward, one where I define success not by external validation, but by remaining true to my values and honoring where I came from. 6 months passed. Spring blossomed into summer, and summer mellowed into fall. The leaves in the city park near my apartment turned brilliant shades of gold and crimson, a visual reminder of life's continuous transformations. Professional changes accompanied the seasonal shift. Thomas Wilson had made good on his promise to support my law school aspirations, recommending me for the firm's scholarship program. With financial concerns eased, I focused on LSAT preparation with renewed determination, scoring in the 170s on practice tests. "You're a natural," Thomas commented after reviewing my mock results. Harvard material, without question. The compliment meant more coming from him, a Harvard law graduate who had built his career on merit rather than connections. He had become a mentor, offering guidance that extended beyond test preparation to career strategy and professional development. My personal life found new equilibrium as well. The sharp pain of ending things with Lucas had gradually dulled to occasional wistfulness. I still believed we had loved each other genuinely, but love alone couldn't bridge fundamental differences in values and character. Jessica remained my steadfast supporter, celebrating my successes and providing perspective during moments of doubt. My mother, too, stood firmly in my corner, her pride evident in daily texts and weekly dinner dates where she listened attentively to my law school plans. "You were always meant for more than most people could see," she told me during one such dinner. "But you never forgot where you came from. That's your strength, Amber." The Mitchell family had faded from my daily thoughts. Occasionally, I would see Howard's name in medical journals or Lucas's architectural firm mentioned in business publications, but these sightings no longer triggered emotional responses. They were simply people I had once known, now traveling separate paths. Until that rainy Tuesday, exactly 2 years after Lucas and I had met, when I entered Westfield Coffee Company and found him sitting at his old table, architectural sketches spread before him. He looked up as the door chimed, recognition flashing across his face. For a moment, we both froze, unsure of protocol for this unexpected reunion. "Amber," he said finally, standing. "Lucas," I acknowledged, polite but distant. "How are you?" "Good." "I mean, okay." He gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Do you have a minute?" I hesitated but nodded, curiosity outweighing caution. I ordered my usual latte before joining him, noting the changes in his appearance. He looked thinner, more serious, the boyish charm replaced by something more substantial. "I've been hoping to run into you," he admitted. I wasn't sure if calling would be welcome. "It's been a while," I said neutrally. 6 months, 2 weeks. He offered a self-deprecating smile. "Not that I've been counting." The silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken questions. "I moved out permanently," he said finally. "Got my own place downtown. Small architectural studio focusing on sustainable urban housing." "That sounds meaningful," I replied, genuinely impressed. "Separate from your father's connections?" "Completely." He met my eyes directly. It was time to build something on my own terms. "What prompted the change?" Lucas sighed, reorganizing his sketches absently. After the award situation, Dad went into damage control mode. Called in favors, pressured board members, tried to discredit Dr. Rodriguez, who, by the way, is doing amazing work with her grant money. "I've read about her mobile cardiac screening program," I nodded. "Impressive innovation." Dad couldn't see it that way. He was obsessed with restoring the Mitchell reputation, as if that mattered more than actual patient outcomes. Lucas shook his head. The more he fought, the more people questioned his motives. For the first time in his life, the Mitchell name wasn't opening doors. It was raising eyebrows. "That must have been difficult for him," I observed without sarcasm. "It was educational," Lucas corrected. Dad had never faced real consequences before. He'd always been protected by privilege, position, connections. Suddenly, those shields weren't working. "And how did that affect your relationship?" "I saw him clearly for perhaps the first time," Lucas admitted. "How he measures everything and everyone by their utility to him. How he genuinely believes wealth equates to worth. How he's missing the richness of human connection because he can only see value in people who mirror his own advantages." The server delivered my latte, providing a momentary pause in our conversation. "I started therapy," Lucas continued when we were alone again. unpacking a lifetime of implicit messages about class, worth, success. It's been illuminating. That takes courage, I acknowledged, warming slightly toward this more reflective version of my ex-fiancé. What you did, speaking up to the hospital board, it forced a reckoning that was long overdue. Not just for Dad, but for me too. He hesitated. I was angry at first. Blamed you entirely. It took months to recognize that you didn't create the situation, you just refused to enable it anymore. Better late than never, I offered with a small smile. I'm sorry, Amber, he said, voice thick with genuine regret. For not standing up for you sooner. For expecting you to tolerate disrespect for the sake of family harmony. For being too cowardly to choose you over privilege. The apology was unexpected but welcome, acknowledgement of failures I had long since accepted and moved beyond. Thank you for saying that, I replied. I forgive you, Lucas. We were both products of our environments, trying to navigate between worlds that operate by different rules. You did it better than I did, he pointed out. You never compromised your integrity. Maybe, but I had different lessons growing up. My neighborhood taught me that character outlasts circumstances. That true respect isn't based on what you have but who you are. Lucas nodded thoughtfully. I'm trying to apply those lessons now. Building a practice that serves diverse communities. Taking on projects based on impact rather than prestige. It's more fulfilling than I expected. And your parents? Dad still struggles to understand my choices. Mom is more adaptable. She's actually volunteering at a women's shelter now, though I suspect it began as image rehabilitation and evolved into genuine connection. He smiled ruefully. Growth is rarely linear. We talked for another half hour, exchanging professional updates and cautious insights into our separate journeys. The conversation was easier than I had anticipated. Two adults who had once loved each other, now meeting as different people shaped by shared but divergent experiences. As I prepared to leave, Lucas asked, "Are you seeing anyone?" Not seriously, I replied honestly. I've been focused on LSAT prep and work. What about you? I've had a few dates. Nothing significant. He hesitated. I'm still figuring out who I am without the Mitchell blueprint. That's important work, I encouraged. The right relationship will come when you're ready. And you? Are you happy, Amber? The question was simple but profound. I considered it seriously before answering. I am. Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm living authentically. My relationships, romantic or otherwise, are based on mutual respect rather than performance or utility. My career path reflects my values. And I never have to wonder if I'm good enough, because I define enough on my own terms now. We parted with a brief hug. Friendly but without lingering attachment. As I walked to my car, I felt a sense of completion rather than loss. Our relationship had served its purpose in both our lives, teaching lessons neither of us could have learned otherwise. That evening, I joined a dinner gathering at Jessica's apartment. Among the guests was Evelyn Parker's nephew, Michael, a public interest attorney with kind eyes and an easy laugh who had grown up in a neighborhood not unlike Westfield. Evelyn speaks highly of you, he said as we chatted over dessert. She mentioned you're preparing for law school. Harvard's the dream, I confirmed. Those several strong programs have scholarship opportunities. Harvard's my alma mater, he noted without pretension. Tough, but worth it, especially for someone with your determination. How do you know I'm determined? I asked, intrigued. His smile reached his eyes. Anyone who stands up to Howard Mitchell has backbone. That story made quiet rounds in certain circles. I laughed, surprised by his frankness. Not my proudest moment, perhaps. On the contrary, Michael disagreed. Speaking truth to power, even at personal cost? That's exactly the kind of integrity the profession needs. As the evening progressed, our conversation flowed effortlessly from law school experiences to social justice initiatives to favorite hiking trails. Michael listened as attentively as he spoke, asking thoughtful questions about my background with genuine interest rather than anthropological curiosity. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, I provided it without hesitation. Whether our connection developed into friendship, romance, or simply professional networking, it began with mutual respect and genuine interest, a foundation far stronger than the gilded facade of the Mitchell world. In the months that followed, my relationship with Michael evolved naturally. Unlike my time with Lucas, there were no family expectations to navigate, no social hoops to jump through. We connected as equals, each valuing the other's journey and perspective. My friendship with Evelyn Parker flourished as well, evolving into a mentorship that proved invaluable as I navigated law school applications and career planning. She introduced me to her network of legal professionals, arranging informational interviews that provided insight into various specialties within corporate and nonprofit law. "You have something many privileged law students lack," she told me during one of our monthly lunches. Authentic understanding of how policies impact real communities. That perspective is invaluable in creating meaningful change. My mother's pride continued to be my greatest reward. When I received my LSAT scores, 175, well above Harvard's median, she framed the report and hung it beside her nursing certification in our family home. "Look how far we've come," she whispered, embracing me with tears in her eyes. From Westfield to Harvard Law. The journey wasn't complete, of course. Law school would bring new challenges, new tests of character and resilience. But I faced the future with confidence rooted in self-knowledge and hard-won wisdom. The Mitchell experience had taught me valuable lessons: that worth isn't determined by wealth or social standing, that genuine respect can't be bought or inherited, that standing up for your dignity may cost relationships, but preserves something far more precious: your sense of self. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you to what you truly deserve, a life where you're valued not despite your background, but because of the strength, perspective, and authenticity it has given you. As I sit here writing this, I'm reminded that we all face crossroads where we must choose between acceptance on compromised terms or the harder path of authentic self-respect. If you're at such a crossroads now, remember that you deserve relationships, romantic, professional, familial, where your worth isn't conditional on performing or conforming to someone else's expectations. The right people will value your unique journey. The right opportunities will build on your authentic strengths. And the right path forward will honor where you've been while opening doors to where you're meant to go. Have you ever had to choose between acceptance and self-respect? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need this reminder of their inherent worth. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your background doesn't determine your future, but it can give you the strength to create it on your own terms.